when you look at the way sales is generally broken down, which is that 90-day year, and inside of the 90-day year, there's 3 months. And inside every one of those months, there's 4 weeks. And we're measured on those metrics constantly. So we know what that pressure is like. But I guarantee you, everybody works hardest the last 2 weeks of the quarter.
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. Welcome, Shannon Gregg, to my show, the Selling with Social podcast. Thank you so much, my friend, for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. The pleasure is all mine.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited for those of you listening in. We've got Shannon Gregg, the amazing, the wonderful, the now author, keynote speaker, as well as the head of business development operations at Accurian, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, inside sales, correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Yes, very good. And I am excited because not only did I have the awesome opportunity to write some praise and get it published in your book, thank you, but you just came out with a brand new book. It's about time, how to do more of what matters in the time you have. Shannon, it's about freaking time you came out with a book like this.
Thank you so much.
I love it. All right, do me a favor. Before we get into some of the topics around your book that could really help all of our listeners responsible for client acquisition and retention. I obviously talked a little bit about you already. Tell us a little bit about your past, your history. Who are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, thank you so much, Mario. I do everything that the people who are out in the field do not want to do and do not like to do. So I love living inside of the operations world, and I've managed teams in inside sales, proposals, contracts, pricing, sales engineer, all the things that you can kind of set on rails and really get moving to help that field sales team just get out there and generate revenue.
Awesome. Very good. And when did you decide that you wanted to be a book author?
I don't know that I decided that exactly. I think it decided me.
It decided you. It called you. You had the calling and you decided to deliver on that. That's fantastic. I keep telling everybody says, when's your book coming out? I said 2017. Then they asked, when's your book coming out? 2018.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got good practice by reading mine in its embryonic stages and writing some advanced praise. So I think you can do it.
I'm hoping I can get it done. Well, listen, tell me if there is one thing about yourself that nobody would know by looking at your social profiles. Give us something good, something juicy, Shannon.
Okay. So I judge cheer and dance competitions. And for the past handful of years, I've actually judged on the hip hop panel at the Dance Worlds in Disney World.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay.
It's awesome. It's really, really fun.
Very cool. So do you dance yourself or you just got into the judging?
Every Sunday night. I still go to dance class. I'm on a mom jazz team.
Nice. All right. Well, can you bust a move out right now?
Maybe at the end.
At the end. Okay. We'll have to clip that one for the video program of this Selling with Social podcast. I like it. Fantastic. Well, every time I ask that question, I always get something new that I never expected. I did not know that about you. We got jazz hands on our hands.
For real.
For real. Fantastic. Well, listen, we're talking about it's about time. And I will tell you, Shannon, there is not enough time in the day.
No.
There isn't. And this is a big challenge for professionals, business professionals, period, but especially those in sales and those in marketing. I feel like I work 20 hours a day.
I bet you do.
I really do. Like, this is probably neuroticism at its, is that the right word? I've got a neurosis issue. No, what's the right word? What is the word I'm looking for?
Let's call it eagerness.
Eagerness. All right, we'll go eagerness. First off, I'm addicted to my mobile device. That in and of itself is its own problem. Yes, I can admit it. And no, I have not gone to some sort of program for addiction to my mobile device.
12 steps.
The 12-step program. But it is really all about the time. And when we're in sales, client acquisition, client retention, we're responsible for, selling and delivering. It's really difficult. So I want to understand, just talk about, why did you write a book about time and about how to do more with what matters most, which is our time? So what was the inspiration behind the book?
Yes, such a good question, Mario. So, those of us who are in sales, marketing, client success, customer retention, and acquisition, we are driven to constantly be doing more, to find customers, to keep customers. And because we aren't on KPIs that sort of say, start at 8 o'clock, end at 5 o'clock, and that's your workday, it's very easy for us to say, it's time for us to make one more call. We need to send one more email. We have to check in on one more customer. And, just by nature of working with a lot of salespeople who are under this same exact pressure, who feel the same way you do, I started experiencing ways to help add a little bit of process that allowed them to group like-minded sort of ideas together, activities together, tasks together, and ways to put things on rails so they could become more scalable with their time. Because frankly, you're not going to get more. And if you did, you'd just pack it more full with work, right?
Yeah. Well, work, and then you've got family, and you've got friends, and then you've got, whatever else you're trying to accomplish inside of 24 hours other than sleep, right? And you also have a co-author, Sean McBride. Tell me a little bit about Sean.
Sean's pretty fantastic. He is a lawyer he's done a ton of work helping small businesses reach their potential in a way that's legal and scalable for their business. He does a lot of forward business planning. He's really a thought-provoking leader in terms of helping people understand how to go about running their business in a way that makes sense for them, so that in the end they can make the most revenue possible, which is all of our goals.
I love it. And I know we'll have Sean coming on soon on Selling with Social as well to share some of his thought leadership. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's get right into some meat. I have a problem. You know it. You have the same problem. And so does every other business professional that's out there. We have a problem, and it's time management.
Right.
Number one reason why we all have a problem with time management. Is it because corporations are demanding more of us that they shouldn't be? Is it because we are inefficient with the use of our time? Is it because companies are cutting back and they're asking us to do more with less? What is the fundamental issue that is out there?
I think the answer to your question is yes, 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 and yes.
Yes. Yeah. I love that answer.
All yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will say all of the above. And I think a lot of it just comes back to us to decide how we prioritize those things and how we're able to react to them. So, one of the things that I really love to talk about is this golden triangle, which is based on research that was done in the 60s by Levitt, who really came out with Levitt's diamond, saying whenever you have an organization and you've got this business organization, you need to have 3 pillars that work with each other. So you've got people, you've got process, and you've got technology. And these 3 things, this triangle, is like a 3-legged stool that really needs to be balanced. So it has to have weight and counterweight between the 3 of them. And the way that they work in concert is very important. And so I think, like you were saying before about your phone, that technology can interrupt your process. So Mario, when you run your day and you say, this is the way I process my day, first thing I like to do is check email. Then I like to look at my CRM system. Then I like to go to my social systems to see if there's anything I need to respond to. And then you get a notification on your technology that interrupts your own process. That stool is really off kilter.
Well, I will tell you, first off, people, process, and technology, after, taking a look at the book and having, written some praise about the book here, those are 3 areas that you talk about inside the book. And one of the things that I've done is actually remove notifications off my device.
Nice.
Right. But I still have a problem. Right. And I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday was an excellent example. I didn't even have a chance, believe it or not. I didn't look at LinkedIn all day long. I don't know even how that was possible.
This is shocking.
It was shocking. It was shocking. I didn't look at it not one time the entire day from the moment I sat down after dropping off my son at school.
Wow.
At 8:30 till 6 o'clock, I had literally over 100 Twitter notifications. I had over 45 LinkedIn notifications. I had over 120 emails that I hadn't even gotten to, and I was just on calls back to back to back. What do I do? Do I just pound through it and work late at night? I mean, that's what I do now, right? Or is there a way to get through this? Is there a plan? How do I remain calm? Because when I see that, I get so anxious. I'm like, I can't take this. This is like, it's overwhelming. Like, what do I do? Help me, Dr. Gregg.
In 3 years, maybe you can call me that. I actually just started a PhD program in community engagement, which is really
you.
Yes. So we'll meet back in 3 years and see how that works out.
Okay. All right. And then I'll officially call you Dr. Gregg. It's okay. You're Dr. Gregg to me with the book.
So I really think I have two things I want to touch on here, Mario. One is with the book, one of the things that Sean and I really wanted to focus on was that there are loads of time management systems. You've been through training on them. I've been through training on them. And I guarantee you and I could have sat next to each other at all of these trainings and came away from it with different interpretations and different realistic expectations of how they would work for us. And I think that is one of our really guiding principles is you don't have to buy into somebody else's system. Somebody else's system really may not work for you. So instead of getting very didactic and prescriptive with a system that says, you must batch everything this way, because that works for me. I love batching. It might not work for you because you may enjoy bouncing back and forth from one thing to another. And so, I think the first guiding principle is find a system that works for you. The second one, though, which for me was really guided by the 4-hour work week, which, Tim Ferriss is very well known for, is to set expectations with the people that you interact with. And I think that's one of the ways that, especially sales managers or CSM managers, relationship managers, where they kind of get stuck is not setting that expectation with their team, which is, hey, you can send me an email. Maybe you forward me something on LinkedIn. If it is time sensitive, give me a call. And, when I read this by Tim Ferriss, it really kind of set something off in my brain where I thought, yes, it is a lot about managing others' expectations of your time as well. So, 40 Twitter notifications, those can probably wait. If somebody's tweeting at you and it's imperative they get in touch with you, they know how to find you. They can call you.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And going into this concept of find the system that works for you, do you go through and talk about a system that you're recommending or that people can try and talk a little bit about that? Like, what is a system? Because frankly, I don't know if I have one. Other than lying in bed at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning while I'm trying to catch up and under the covers, I don't wake up my wife so that the light doesn't shine in her eyes. That's my system. And I don't know if it works.
Is that the guy from State Farm that looks really ugly?
Right. Actually, this is a true story. Before you go into your story, true story. I don't know how many years ago this was, but I was literally under the covers and I was on my phone and, the covers were moving and it was in the middle of the night. And I woke up, my brain was just, it's too much. I was thinking and I was, all the covers were moving and my wife didn't understand. She felt me moving. She saw the cover. She was like, what's going on? And she saw a light and she was like, what is all this movement going on under the covers? So she pulled up and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, working. She's like, I'm like, jeez Louise, I'm not doing that. Sorry. I had to tell it was a great story because I was just like, did you really think I was doing that kind of stuff?
That is great. That is so great. That's funny. Yes, I think that's really part of the challenge when you're working with customers. When you've got customers that you're working with, they seem to really take priority. So customers, I think, whenever they reach out to you, that seems to take everything else that you had planned. Like maybe you were checking a UAT of a new sales system. And customers, if they email you in the middle of that, you have a tendency to take them and prioritize them on top, don't you? And I think that's part of the thing that we can't turn off as salespeople. So you almost have to schedule times in for yourself and say, hey, and I bet you're a nocturnal person, right? Do you do your best thinking at night?
Yeah, absolutely. I can easily work till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right. There are always interruptions in your time. I mean, there are customers who are knocking on your door saying, let me get in there. And your brain is saying, I absolutely have to let them in because they want to hear back from me immediately. And I think one of the things that you can do for yourself is say, I respect and appreciate that I'm really good at thinking at night. And I'm like you. My best ideas are probably coming between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. So I keep a notebook by my bed and I try to write them down. And so you might really benefit from kind of setting yourself up a do not disturb on your phone so that between midnight and 5 a.m., you can't check your email and you can't check your phone. Just to kind of make that commitment to yourself, like, hey, I need sleep. And without sleep, I turn into a crazy person.
Yeah. Interesting. I use an app and the app is on Gmail. I think it's called Boomerang, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I actually paused the emails that are coming in at the same time that I'm doing email because it's too much. Like you reply, someone replies, you reply, and it's back and forth. And you can never get through your box, right? So I feel like, let me get through the 50, 75, 100, whatever the number is, emails I need to get through. Let it all go out. I don't want to see anything come back. And then when I feel like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to be able to take on the next batch. Then I open it back up and now whatever, another 100 emails come in and the cycle starts all over again. But I feel more productive when I go that route. Like, is that a good way to be able to handle some productivity issues?
Perfect. And Mario, it's truly like we had discussed this before and we haven't. But what you've done is said, hey, this is my best process. I do best when I focus on the one thing I'm responding to and put those other notifications out of the way. So what you've done there is beautifully illustrated how you can use technology to best work the process that's good with people. And in this case, the people is you.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, I know in the productivity section of the book, it's about time. And you mentioned this earlier in our conversation, talking about people, process, and technology. I think these are some really great fundamental areas to focus in on for this discussion that would hopefully encourage people to go out and hopefully pick the book up. I mean, we're talking about 70-page book, I think it is, right?
That's right. It's a very quick read on a short airplane ride.
Yeah, very quick read, very easy to be able to just like plow through this and get some great insights to help fix a problem that is a real problem amongst business professionals. But talk a little bit about these three areas: people, process, technology. These three pillars, I think, is what you like to refer to them as.
I do. So one of the things that I found is, particularly when you're implementing a new technology, let's say you're upgrading your CRM or you're adding an additional method of, prospecting, or you're working with some kind of application that will show you how to best manage your accounts. That is a very heady time. And I think people will meet with salespeople who will say, this application, whether it's sales tech or MarTech, because they both cross into our world, it's going to be perfect for you. It's going to solve all of your problems. And they give you their shiny dog and pony and it feels amazing. And you're able to say, yes, this is exactly what I want. It's going to help me make more money. It's going to help my team make more money. We are going to be really focused. We're going to be able to report out to senior management, all of the things that we want to do. And then nobody thinks about process. So you get into implementing this technology, which has all of the bells and whistles a person could need, and nobody's gone back and tried to outline the specifics around the process of your particular company. So it's always good to say, hey, as we're choosing technology, let's also talk about the way that we approach prospecting and the way that we reach out to customers and how we manage tasks and activities, so that you can understand how that process is going to overlay with the technology so that the two aren't not in sync.
If I'm a salesperson for a company, do I really have control over that? Like on the back end, what should I do? Like, should I turn to my sales enablement manager, leader, trainer, whoever it might be, or sales operations and say, you guys are killing me. Help a brother out here. Right?
Yes.
or like, how do I make impact for change? What's the right way for me to do that? Because as a salesperson, I don't get to choose the technology very often, unless I'm part of a pilot. I don't get to roll out what the right process and how this would work. And oftentimes, no offense, you're one of a senior thought leader in the enablement space, but oftentimes enablement and operations folks roll out something that is not even field tested and it doesn't work. So how do I affect what they're doing so that it helps me to be able to get my time back to sell more?
Perfect. Such a good question. And I think even though in operations and enablement, we are very aware that the sales team are our customers. We are really aware of that. And I think the first thing that you think you have to tell yourself is they have the best of intentions, so they saw the dog and pony and they want to make things better for me, because everyone's focused on bringing in the most amount of revenue to the company. Yeah. So I would say, yes, absolutely raise your hand and say to sales leadership, sales enablement and operations, help me out here. Here's something that I'm trying to do. It's actually added 3 steps. I have to click several times. This just doesn't feel natural for me. Is this behaving as expected? And a lot of times you'll be able to find out that maybe the enablement person doesn't actually enter opportunity records. And so they didn't realize when they're asking you to do several searches that it takes multiple other clicks. And there's other ways for them to customize the technology. So I would say for sure, definitely reach out and say, this is really hurting me. I think the other thing I would advise is to say, how can I operate within these confines? So are there things about the way that I'm working that I can do that would be more process oriented and therefore be repeatable and scalable? And then finally, I would say to all the operations people, don't forget about governance. So something that's really important is if you're a business analyst or an application owner, say you own CRM or you own marketing automation or you own your social selling scheduler, reach out to your customers and say, all right, we're going to have every 6 weeks governance meeting so I can hear from you what's working as expected and what's getting in your way. And that way it's iterative and it's alive and it's something that's constantly giving back.
The governance idea is phenomenal. And I don't think enough organizations do that. And, if you think about it this way too, Shannon, when you create these governance councils, it's like, the council to the vice president, right? And it's a field,
right.
It's a field. When you create that, this is like an opportunity that you could put on your resume. It's an opportunity that you can actually, for advancement, that you're taking a leadership role. And not enough organizations create those governance models that are field tested, right? The field is the one that's giving that. And
right.
Anybody who's listening, sales leader, sales operations, sales management, marketing, ask yourself, how many field governance models, groups do you have out there? Right? You should be one for every sales region that you've got. If it's a small company, you should have a small group because you've got to give people an opportunity to be able to have a voice. And it cannot just be your top performing people. You pick, the bottom, top, and middle and bring them part of that. Maybe not necessarily the bottom, because oftentimes they use this as a reward system, right? Like those that are producing will be able to help provide guidance. But that's a great point in terms of having that governance model there and that being field tested. You talk about something in the book that I thought that was very interesting. And it's so true. You said you've probably experienced spurts of time when you are highly productive. It's the weeks before you leave for vacation or being time crunched with loads of personal and professional deliverables. And you're able to get all of the laundry done, pack all the clothes and all the extra beach chairs, all this stuff you got to do. It's like you got this list and you're just like plowing through it. Boom, 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 boom. Why is that? Why are we so much more productive when we are time bound, time crunched? We're behind the 8 ball. My wife gets so stressed because I've got a big proposal, big presentation, I'm keynote speaking. And she's like, you're waiting till like the night before to finish your presentation. I'm like, baby, that's when I do my work best. It's like, it's just magical what happens. You're like, you're killing me. I can't do it. Is that good for us? Is that bad? Should we?
Well, I have a theory that those of us who are around sales, marketing, customer facing, we like pressure. We're probably 50% crazy and 50% really turned on by pressure. And if you think about, when the payoff is really, honestly, honestly, I think it scratches an itch that's probably, buried so deep in the id of people who go near sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, one part is the payoff. You feel so good when you've got this high pressure situation and you're able to get it done and you can kind of wipe your hands and say, look what I did. I'm so productive. And I think, when you look at the way sales is generally broken down, which is that 90-day year, and inside of the 90-day year, there's 3 months. And inside every one of those months, there's 4 weeks. And we're measured on those metrics constantly. So we know what that pressure is like. But I guarantee you, everybody works hardest the last 2 weeks of the quarter. Everybody works hardest the last 2 weeks of the quarter when that pressure of hitting that target is so looming in front of you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think there's just, being time bound. And I will tell you, I'm sure there's probably some endorphins that are released inside of our bodies that like the high.
No question. Question. It's that, the pleasure-seeking area of your brain.
Yes, exactly.
Says, please, give me more of that.
Yeah, exactly. And you're constantly, I need to fix. People tell me like, how do you plow through these things? How do you get so much done? I don't know what it is. I just feel like, I'm like, I don't do drugs, right? So this is my drug.
Right. It is too. And, when you get that contract you weren't expecting or you land that customer, weeks earlier than you thought you did, there is nothing like that feeling. And so you're constantly looking for it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as soon as you get it, you're like, yes. And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I guess on to the next, right? So like you're looking for the next one. That's the worst part about sales. This golden triangle that you talked about inside the book, talk a little bit about that. What is it? And I think we talked a little bit about that and related to people, process, and technology, but expand upon this golden triangle and how important it is to understand.
Oh, super Mario. So the first thing I think I want to say is that you can use it professionally, but you can also use it personally. So you just described the Boomerang app that, that works with a G Suite, but I'm sure that people are using apps to run their household, or they're using Google Calendar or Cozy apps or Sign Up Genius if your kids are in school. There are so many ways that you can use technology to make your life better, to keep reminders and just stay focused on things. And I think thinking about where you can cross that bridge from professional to personal, so that when your worlds do intermesh, which for you is, every night when you're saying, should I sleep? And I've got personal things and I've got kids and I've got work and customers, that you have control over all of them all of the time. So I was just speaking with a friend of mine who said he uses Evernote for everything, regardless of whether it's work or personal. So he can constantly say, here's what I have lined up that I need to do. And I think finding that for yourself as a personal person, as well as an employee, is very important.
And efficiency. Some of us feel like when we're under pressure, we work better. We've just talked about that, right? Like, I work so much better under pressure. Is it the most efficient way, period? Or is there a better methodology to become more efficient, to become more thorough, more exacting in the way we engage with clients, our jobs, our roles, whatever it might be?
So you bring up such a great point that I think I would encourage everybody, every time you think about, am I being efficient? Ask yourself, am I also being effective? Because those two things, I think a lot of people talk about, we want to be efficient and effective. And those words, they stop meaning anything. They just are a phrase that people put together. But it's really, am I being efficient with my approach? And am I meeting the goals that I wanted to? So when I'm using this approach and it seems like batching works, is that also effective? Because if you were expected to take inbound calls, for example, you can't say I'm going to batch all of my outbound calls, because you better answer the phone when that customer is calling you. So,
right.
So it's about being reasonable with your expectations and setting up things that are both efficient and effective.
Mm-hmm. And something that I think goes on the line of efficiency is what you talked about, which I really actually didn't know this before reading into the book. However, it's exactly what I've done. And I didn't know that there was actually a science behind this. And it's the 5 whys exercise, right? And talk a little bit about it. I think this 5 whys was, I forget who the person was, the pioneer of Toyota Production Systems. Is it Talichi?
Mm-hmm.
Ahono?
Mm-hmm.
And if I mess up the name, my total bad. But he encouraged his staff to ask why. And was it 5 times? Is that what it is?
5 times.
Why? Why did he ask people to ask why? Why? Tell me why, Shannon.
Yes, great question. I'm glad you picked up on this, because I think this is such an important thing for getting to root cause. So a lot of times when people are saying, here's something I want to solve in our process, here's where our process is inefficient, and they say, why is our process inefficient? And they answer one question and then they automatically prescribe a way to fix that. But really, in this Toyota system was based on getting deeper and saying, but what's the actual root cause? So, an example would be to say, okay, my salespeople aren't prospecting enough. Why? Why aren't your salespeople prospecting enough? They have too many other things to do when they're getting contracts and proposals out. Why? We only have one person that supports 20 salespeople in contracts and proposals. Why? That's the way it's always been. Why? We've never looked at the staffing model. So now you go from my salespeople can't prospect to finding out there's a challenge in the support staff model. So when you get deep like that, it helps you discover the root cause instead of fixing the Band-Aid, which, at initial thought, you might say, I got to send my salespeople to prospecting training. So here you found out our staffing model is imbalanced. So getting a little bit deeper and continuing to ask why really is helpful at figuring out what will the best problem-solving solution be.
Which, in theory, gives you back time, helps you to become more productive, right?
Perfect. Yes, exactly.
I'm going to tease this one out for a second, because for those that are leaders that are listening in, this is like a big one that leaders can really start drilling down, like this 5 whys, drill it down into 5 whys. And I love your example. You went, my salespeople are not productive, all the way to, well, we've always done business this way with only one person that supports, and it's like, whoa, we just went from salespeople are the issue now to really the issue is we actually never relooked at our models in terms of how we actually support the sales infrastructure to deliver on what we asked them to deliver. We have a problem, which is our salespeople, but the problem is not the salespeople. The problem was all the way backwards in time into the example you gave, which was, how we support the salespeople, right?
Right.
And that's an interesting analysis. But I will tell you, Shannon, not all leaders like being asked why. In fact, in most occasions, you'll get to 1 or 2 whys and people will answer. But beyond that, you're now a source of irritation. So what's your best advice to leaders in terms of they're on the receiving end of being asked 5 whys? How should they deal with that? How should they cope?
Such a good question. And, a very wise mentor of mine told me one time, several times, feedback is a gift. And so a lot of times when I'm receiving feedback or somebody's questioning me, I remind myself, this person's giving me a gift, because it would be easier for them to just ignore it and let it go. And then I wouldn't have any personal growth. So sometimes it really is as visceral as you just telling yourself, feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
And it's tough as leaders because we've gotten to where we are by being good at what we do. And so you get to a spot where you're used to being the expert and you're used to being the ones with the answers. But, being able to be asked why and being able to work with your team in this way, it shows some humility that makes you human. And people are really attracted to that.
Yeah. I like to think of it as you have children, and so do I. And we go through that period of time where they start asking, why? And then you give the answer, but why? And then they give the answer, but why? And then you get to the point where you're like, that's a good point. I don't know why. Right? I think it's somewhere between the third why and the fifth why that you end up thinking, oftentimes, at least for me, I never thought about that. I don't know why, right?
Sure.
And I think it's somewhere between the second why and the third why in business where you get the irritated individual. Right?
I agree.
Someone feels like you're questioning them now, their department, their infrastructure, their process. But why? Why would you be offended, right? We get to that fifth why, and with our children, we're like, just because, it is because, just because. But if we practice that same patience internally, right? That between second and third why you're irritated, don't be irritated. Wait till the fourth why, and you might just say, holy crap, I don't know why. That's a great question, right? And do you agree?
I definitely do. And I think, sometimes we have to remind ourselves as humans that we have a tendency to be defensive when somebody's asking us these types of questions. But the last thing any of us want to do is to work for Kodak or Blockbuster when they were unseated by competitors. And had there been more pressure internally, there would have been more innovation. And I think that is probably the key, is remembering innovation is often born out of pressure.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, think about it. People say that Netflix put Blockbuster out of business. It wasn't Netflix. Right. Blockbuster themselves put themselves out of business.
Right.
Why? Well, because they didn't respond to the changing demands of late fees. Nobody wanted late fees. Guess what? I can get it all you can eat, all you can drink, all I want it through streaming media called Netflix.
Right.
That's why, right? So you can't blame it. Think about, what the effect that Uber's had on the taxi industry. Why is the taxi industry suffering? It's not because Uber came along and put him out of business. Why? Why is because the taxi industry didn't respond to what the growing demand was of the business. And the business was, I wanted more access to more vehicles, and I didn't want to be time bound with this the way you charged me. It's ludicrous. I just was in a taxi actually on the other day. I was coming back from the Sales 3.0 conference from Selling Power. And on the way there, from the airport to the exact same hotel, it cost me $26. On the way back, it cost me $13. Now, I sat there and I thought, how did I end up paying $10 more? It's because of garbage like that is why the taxi industry is being put out of business. Because homie put more money on the meter than what he was supposed to and overcharged me. And that's why the taxi industry is being put out of business. Sorry, that's my shameless plug for Uber and Lyft and everybody else. And anybody that's in the taxi industry, hopefully you heard that. But anyways, going back to the subject that matters most, it's about time. And how do you do more of what matters in the time you have? And before we close out here, I want to just get from you, if you were 1 to 3 things that you wanted business professionals to stop doing, what would that be?
Well, I think the first one is to stop resisting change. There's this very interesting diffusion model that, a lot of us are in technology sales, so we get it. You have your early adopters and your innovators. They're going to buy it just because you put it out. But it's the rest of those people who are sitting at the top of the bell curve that really have to think, is this going to make my life better? And how can I be adaptable around this situation? The second thing that I would really, and this one's for you sales managers and you customer service managers and people who are leading a team, be very thoughtful about the learning styles of the people in your team. So, just because you learn visually doesn't mean they do. And anytime you're implementing something, you generally have to present it a number of times for it to sink in to all the people that you're working with. And the third one is, I just want to encourage everybody, make time for those things that matter. Make time for your friends and family, because we have a tendency to get ourselves so caught up in what we're doing with work and those impending pressures that are in front of us that sometimes we forget what we're here for.
I love it. Well, you've heard it there from the sales productivity expert, sales tech geek, sales operations, and salesperson obsessed, our friend Shannon Gregg. And Shannon, before I let you go, a couple questions for you. And that is, if someone wanted to reach out and talk to you, if they wanted to be able to connect with you, what's the best way? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Is it email or phone number? What's the best way to reach out to you?
So like you, I'm on all of those things. So you can reach me anywhere. I have a website, shannongregg.com, G-R-E-G-G. I'm also on LinkedIn. I love to work with people and learn from people. I think we all have so many things to offer. So please find me any way that you can.
And we'll make sure we put your LinkedIn profile and Shannon Gregg, that's G-R-E-G-G.com, into the show notes of the webpage here. And last but not least, the question that I always ask all my guests, your favorite all-time movie ever. What is it?
That is such a tough question for me because I do love a lot of movies, but I will tell you the one that stuck with me the most that I obsessed over was The Babadook. So The Babadook was a really psychological film, and I guess you'd put it in the horror genre, but I think why it's so horrifying is you can see how somebody can get so inside of their own head that they can't see reality anymore.
We have not had Babadook on the show before, so that's a new one for us. I've never even heard of the movie Babadook.
That will also keep you up at night. So,
so maybe I shouldn't watch it. All right, the Babadook. We'll take that one. Well, Shannon, it's been a true pleasure having you on Selling with Social. Thank you so much, my friend. Congratulations on the book. It's about time. We will put by the way, where can people go to buy the book?
So it is on pre-order now, and on October 1st, it will be on Amazon in both physical and Kindle editions. And before we close, I want to tell you, thank you for reading it ahead and giving us your advanced praise. It certainly means a lot to me. I think you are one of my favorite people in the sales arena, and I'm so honored to know you.
Well, thank you so much, my dear. I appreciate that. I'll pay you your $100 later. All right, there you have it, folks. Shannon Gregg, go out and get the book. It's about time. It will help you. It's about 70 pages, and it's a great, easy, super fast read from Shannon Gregg and Sean McBride. And we will have the link to purchase in the show notes as well. Shannon, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us on Selling with Social.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcast to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges, along with Conversations with Phil with my friend and partner, Phil Gerbishak. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.